What if one of Hollywood's most beloved stars kept a secret? A secret about someone who once shared the screen with him in a way that made millions believe in love again. Keanu Reeves, the mysterious, humble star. Sandra Bullock, the charming, radiant actress who stole every scene. For decades, fans whispered, was there something more? And then, years later, Keanu Reeves finally revealed his hidden feelings for Sandra Bullock. But what exactly did he confess? And why did it leave the entire world stunned? Stay with us, because nobody saw this coming. It was 1994. Hollywood was buzzing with big action films, but no one expected a little thriller about a bus that couldn't slow down to become a cultural phenomenon. That movie was Speed. For the world, it was the birth of one of the most unforgettable on-screen duos of the decade, Keanu Reeves as Jack Traven and Sandra Bullock as Annie Porter. But for Keanu and Sandra, it was the beginning of a connection that would quietly last a lifetime. When Sandra first walked into the audition room, producers weren't sure if she was the right fit. But then, Keanu Reeves looked at her. The way he smiled, the way he listened, something just clicked. The director later admitted, the moment Sandra and Keanu read their lines together, it didn't feel like acting. It felt real. On screen, Jack and Annie were thrown into chaos, a bus rigged to explode if it dropped below 50 miles per hour. But behind the cameras, Sandra and Keanu were calm, natural, and full of laughter. Sandra once recalled, I was so nervous working with Keanu. But he immediately put me at ease. He was kind, considerate, and he had this quiet energy that just made you feel safe. And Keanu? He noticed Sandra's charm right away. He described her as radiant, funny, and someone who could light up the entire set. The chemistry was undeniable. Every glance, every line, every shared laugh. It didn't just entertain audiences, it made people wonder, is this more than just acting? Fans left theaters convinced that the two were secretly dating. But both stars were quick to shut down the rumors. In interviews, Sandra would laugh and say, No, we were just friends. Keanu would simply smile, give a small shrug, and move on. But friendship, it was real, it was deep. While shooting Speed, long days under the hot California sun often left the cast and crew exhausted. Yet Keanu would always find a way to make Sandra laugh. Whether it was a small joke, a goofy expression, or just listening to her stories, he gave her his full attention. Sandra admitted years later, I would giggle like a schoolgirl when Keanu was around. He was just different. Their bond wasn't just about fun, it was about trust. When they filmed dangerous stunt scenes, Sandra confessed she was terrified at times. But Keanu would look at her, reassure her, and say softly, You've got this. I'll be right here. That calm confidence was all she needed. The movie became a global hit, grossing over $350 million worldwide, turning both Keanu and Sandra into household names. But more importantly, it left fans with an image burned into their memories. Keanu and Sandra, side by side, looking like the perfect pair. Yet off-camera, they insisted, they were just friends. But was that the whole truth? Or was something already stirring beneath the surface? The cameras captured the explosions, the stunts, the tense moments on a bus racing through Los Angeles. But what the cameras didn't show was what happened when the director yelled, "Cut!" That was where the real story between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock began to unfold. On set, Keanu was known for his calm presence. While others rushed around with nerves and pressure, he was steady, thoughtful, and always polite. Sandra, on the other hand, brought energy, laughter, and a kind of brightness that made even the longest days feel lighter. Together, they created a balance that everyone noticed. Crew members later revealed that Keanu would quietly go out of his way for Sandra. If she looked tired, he would bring her water. If the day felt too heavy, he would crack a gentle smile that instantly lifted her mood. Sandra once laughed while remembering how Keanu showed up at her house with champagne and truffles, for no reason at all. She said, "That's just who he was. Thoughtful in ways you don't expect." It wasn't just gifts. It was the way he listened. While many actors used breaks to retreat to their trailers, Keanu often sat with Sandra, letting her talk, letting her joke, letting her be herself. He didn't interrupt, he didn't dominate the conversation. He simply paid attention. And Sandra noticed. Years later, she admitted, "I think about how sweet Keanu was, how he looked out for everyone, not just me but the crew too. The two shared inside jokes that nobody else fully understood. During filming, Sandra often teased him about being too serious, while Keanu would gently laugh at her playful energy. Their rhythm was natural. It didn't feel like movie stars performing, it felt like two people simply enjoying each other's company. Sometimes, the sparks showed even when they weren't acting. A simple glance across the set, a moment of silence before a scene, a smile shared after a long day, these were the details that fans never saw, but cast and crew remembered. Sandra later confessed in an interview, "I think I had a crush on Keanu. I mean, who didn't? But I never told him." And when she said it, her laugh wasn't just amusement, it was the nervous laugh of someone remembering how real that feeling had been. Keanu, for his part, kept things understated. When asked about Sandra, he would say she was funny, smart, and wonderful. Simple words, but said with such sincerity that it made people wonder if there was more behind them. The behind-the-scenes bond between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock wasn't loud, dramatic, or staged. It was quiet. It was in the small moments, the kind gestures, the laughter shared when no one else was watching. To the outside world, they were just two co-stars making a blockbuster movie. But to those who looked a little closer, it was clear, something deeper was building between them. Something unspoken, yet impossible to ignore. For years, fans wondered if there was something more between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. On screen, their connection was magnetic. Off-screen, their warmth toward each other was undeniable. Yet, whenever the question came up, both of them insisted they were just friends. But the truth is, there were hints. Subtle, quiet hints that something deeper was hiding just beneath the surface. Sandra was the first to let the world see a glimpse of it. During an interview years after Speed, she smiled shyly and admitted, "I think I had a crush on Keanu." She said it almost like a secret she had been keeping, then laughed it off. But her eyes told a different story. It was the kind of laugh that comes when you reveal something vulnerable. The interviewer pushed her, asking if anything ever happened between them. Sandra shook her head. "No, nothing. We were just, friends. But I would blush whenever he was around." That confession alone was enough to set headlines spinning. Fans reacted instantly. They had always suspected the spark was real. Now, they had proof that at least one side of it existed. But then came Keanu's turn. He was shown Sandra's clip in a separate interview. At first, he smiled, that famous quiet smile that reveals little. Then, after a pause, he spoke softly. "She never knew I liked her too." The host froze. The audience gasped. Even the cameramen couldn't hide their surprise. After decades of rumors, Keanu Reeves had admitted he too had feelings for Sandra Bullock. It was the confession nobody expected, yet everyone had been waiting for. And it raised the question, if they both liked each other, why didn't anything happen? Sandra herself later explained, "We could have survived as a couple. I really believe that. But we didn't cross that line. Maybe it was timing, maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just meant to be the way it was." That word, timing, seemed to define their entire story. Both young actors in the middle of rising careers. Both cautious, both focused, both respectful. Neither willing to risk the friendship or complicate the bond that had grown so naturally between them. And so, their feelings remained unspoken. Hidden behind laughs on late-night shows, behind red carpet smiles, behind years of friendship that carried an invisible what-if hanging in the air. For fans, it was heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. Two people so clearly perfect for each other, admitting years later that the feelings had been real all along. But also confessing that they had chosen silence instead of action. Unspoken feelings can be louder than words. In every glance, every shy laugh, every gentle compliment they gave each other, there was a story waiting to be told. A story that finally, after decades, began to reveal itself. For years, their story was one of silence. Fans speculated, journalists asked, but Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock always stayed polite, always kept it simple. Friends, nothing more. And then, everything changed with one unexpected confession. It began when Sandra was invited onto a talk show. The host, curious like millions of fans, asked her about Keanu. At first, she laughed, trying to brush it off. But then she leaned forward, her smile turning softer, more personal. "You know," she said, "I think I had a crush on him." The audience erupted. The host's jaw dropped. Sandra continued, describing how she had giggled around Keanu on set, how he made her feel safe during dangerous scenes, how he was so kind and thoughtful that it was impossible not to fall for him, even just a little. But then she added, almost regretfully, "We never dated. Not once. I guess we just never told each other." It seemed like a light-hearted confession, a memory wrapped in laughter. But it was only half the story. Not long after, in a different interview, Keanu was shown that very clip. He sat in his chair, watching Sandra smile on the screen, listening to her admit that she had a crush on him all those years ago. At first, he gave his familiar modest grin, the one audiences had seen countless times before. But then, his expression changed. He paused, and in a quiet, almost shy voice, he said, "She never knew I liked her too." The room fell silent. The host froze, his eyes wide. The audience gasped before bursting into applause and cheers. The confession was out, clear and undeniable. After decades of speculation, Keanu Reeves had admitted it. He, too, had feelings for Sandra Bullock. It was one of those rare Hollywood moments where truth feels stranger than fiction. Two actors who lit up the screen with their chemistry, who had kept their feelings buried in silence, finally revealed that the spark had been real all along. And yet, their timing had never aligned. While Sandra was laughing about her secret crush, Keanu was quietly holding back his own. When he finally spoke the truth, it wasn't with drama or headlines in mind. It was simply Keanu being Keanu, honest, gentle, and real. The confession spread across the world like wildfire. Clips of the interviews went viral. Fans replayed the moment again and again, marveling at the honesty, the sweetness, and the irony of two people who clearly cared deeply for each other but never took that step. For some, it was heartbreaking, the ultimate mischance love story. For others, it was a reminder of the beauty of unspoken connections, the kind that doesn't always need to be acted on to be meaningful. But one thing was certain. With just a few quiet words, Keanu Reeves had silenced the room, confirmed decades of suspicion, and given fans the confession they had been waiting for. The confession was simple, just a few words spoken softly. But the impact was enormous. When Keanu Reeves admitted that he too had feelings for Sandra Bullock, it was as though the entire world stopped for a moment. The clip spread across television, social media, and fan pages almost instantly. Headlines read, "Keanu and Sandra's secret crush revealed after decades," and asterisk, "Hollywood's sweetest what-if love story." Asterisk, within hours, millions of people were replaying the moment, smiling at the sincerity, and wondering how two people could hide something so genuine for so long. Fans flooded online platforms with their reactions. One wrote, "This is the love story we never got, but always hoped for." Another commented, "Keanu and Sandra should have been the real-life couple we all dreamed about." Some even joked, "It's not too late, they should still get together." Sandra herself eventually saw Keanu's response. When asked about it later, she laughed, her face lighting up with that familiar warmth. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head, "that's so sweet. We could have survived as a couple, but we didn't. Who knows?" It was a playful answer, but there was truth in her voice. A recognition that what they had shared was rare, and maybe, in another life, it could have been more. The media analyzed every detail of their interactions, revisiting old interviews, red carpet appearances, and behind-the-scenes stories. They played back clips of Sandra blushing whenever Keanu's name came up, or Keanu describing her as wonderful with that modest grin. Looking back, it seemed obvious to many that their feelings had always been there, hiding in plain sight. But what made the world react so strongly wasn't just the idea of romance. It was the purity of it. In an industry often criticized for scandals and breakups, here were two of Hollywood's most respected stars, revealing something so innocent, so human, so relatable. Who hasn't wondered about the person they never confessed to? Who hasn't carried the quiet weight of an unspoken crush? Keanu and Sandra's honesty touched people deeply because it wasn't dramatic or staged. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was just two people, decades later, admitting that they cared for each other. That vulnerability resonated with millions. Entertainment hosts replayed the confession with wide eyes, joking that fans were shipping the couple harder than ever before. Talk shows speculated what might have happened if they had dated. Commentators called it one of the sweetest celebrity reveals of the decade. But beyond the headlines, the real story was about the friendship that endured. Even after revealing their feelings, Keanu and Sandra continued to support each other publicly, never allowing the confession to overshadow the respect they shared. In the end, the reaction wasn't just about shock or surprise. It was about love, the kind that doesn't always end in a romance, but still leaves an unforgettable mark. For fans, it felt like witnessing a piece of Hollywood history. For Keanu and Sandra, it was simply the truth finally spoken aloud. Every love story has its own shape. Some burn brightly and fade quickly. Some last a lifetime. And then, there are the ones that never fully begin, yet still capture the imagination of millions. The story of Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock belongs to that last category. They never dated, they never became a Hollywood couple. But somehow, their connection feels even more powerful because of what it represents. It is not about scandal or heartbreak. It is about timing, respect, and the courage to finally speak the truth, even after years of silence. Sandra once said, "We'll be friends for life." And Keanu, in his quiet way, echoed the same sentiment. That friendship became the foundation of everything. It was a reminder that not all meaningful relationships need to follow the path of romance. Sometimes, the bond between two people is strong enough to stand on its own. Still, the confession changed the way the world saw them. Knowing that both had carried secret feelings, hidden during the height of their careers, added a layer of tenderness to their story. Fans could suddenly look back at Speed, at interviews, at red carpet photos, and see the truth shining through the small details. A lingering glance, a shy smile, a laugh that lasted just a second too long. Their story also holds a lesson. Life doesn't always give us perfect timing. Opportunities pass, moments slip away, and sometimes we only realize years later what might have been. But that doesn't make the connection any less real. In fact, it can make it even more beautiful. Because it shows that love doesn't always have to be lived out to matter. For Keanu and Sandra, the unspoken became spoken. The feelings once hidden are now part of their shared history. And the world admires them even more for it. Not because of drama, not because of scandal, but because of honesty. When Keanu revealed his feelings, he wasn't just talking about Sandra. He was giving people everywhere a reminder to cherish the people who matter, to appreciate the bonds we create, and to recognize that sometimes the purest emotions are the ones we keep closest to our hearts. Sandra responded with warmth, with laughter, with respect. And in that response, we saw the kind of connection that endures, even when the world wishes it had turned into something more. As fans, we may never stop wondering, what if? But perhaps the real beauty of their story lies in exactly what it is. Two remarkable people, connected in ways that go beyond labels, beyond Hollywood rumors, beyond time itself. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock remind us that not every love story has to end with a kiss. Some love stories are written in silence, carried in secret, and revealed only when the moment feels right. And sometimes, those are the love stories that stay with us the longest. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold Hollywood moments. And tell us in the comments, do you believe Keanu and Sandra's story is the greatest missed love story of all time?